to Arlington Valley Community Television Studios in beautiful green and wet and Haley, Beaverton, Oregon. We're bringing you the Conversations with Dr. Don show. Good morning and good evening, and I'm following my script because I'm nervous because David Delk here is my guest, and we're going to do a switch on you in a few minutes. And thank you for tuning in. And for your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and whatever else it is that we decided to talk about. And we decided to talk about me tonight, and we're going to switch roles here. And David Delk, who sometimes hosts my shows when I'm not available on vacation, and I asked him to switch roles tonight and interview me. Because as you see, the title of this particular show is a video memoir of a New Orleans Creole. Because in July of this year, I'm going to Madisonville, Louisiana for a family reunion. And it's the first one that I know of this extended family, the Baham Lange family. And I wanted to have this available to show them when we get down at the reunion, and they can see what I've been doing all my life, and meet a whole bunch of other Creoles down there, which I miss in this white bread Northwest U.S. in Beaverton, Oregon. So I'm going to go over to my cheat sheet, and how are you feeling, David?
Well, I'm nervous because I'm interviewing you.
You're nervous?
Yeah, you're probably nervous because you're being interviewed. So
I'm more nervous.
So let's hope we can both get through this.
We'll have a good time, I'm sure. So, why don't you take over, because I'm going to show some slides as we're talking and as you're interviewing me. So you want to start with?
Good. So let's start with the basics, which is who you are. Tell us who you are. Like, let's start with where you were born and how old you are, things like that.
Well, I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana on December 26, 1928, and I lived in the 9th Ward. Is that up on the screen yet? There it is, yeah. I lived in the 9th Ward, and that picture you're seeing is where my house was. And I'm not sure which house that is. And the one next to it that you can see a bit of, that may have been the house I was born in, but that was way back a long, long time ago. And that lady with me is my oldest brother's daughter, Jackie. And this was taken about 4 years ago when I was down in New Orleans. And I said, take me back to where I was born in my first few years of life. And she took me back there, and I was really surprised to see that there was nothing to see anymore. So here is another view of that house. Yeah.
And this is the house that you think you were born in?
Not that house, but in that particular block, and that's as close as I could come. I think my house disappeared, and this one replaced it, I'm guessing.
Oh, okay.
But I have many memories of that time. And up the street a few blocks was Johnson Lockett School, where I went to kindergarten. And just thinking about it brings back all kinds of memories.
Okay.
And then we moved up to Annette Street in the 7th Ward, which was a step up economically. And this house is quite interesting because this is 2022 Annette Street. And this is the only house in the block that's still standing. Now, the block disappeared, fell apart, or deteriorated before Katrina. This was before Katrina. And I was really surprised when I pulled into the street and I saw the house, and that's my old house. Because I went to elementary school from there and went to junior high even from there before my mother died. But then the interesting thing about this is I went up to the front door of this house, knocked on the door, and the lady you see there came to the door, and saw me, and she says, "Hello, Donald." And I thought, "Do you know me?" And she says, "Well, yes, I remember you. I used to live across the street." And this was in the 40s, and this lady remembered me. Can you imagine
that's
that?
very, and did you remember her? Did you know who she
No,
was?
I had no idea who she was, but she knew who I was.
How interesting.
And all kinds of memories come back from those times. So moving on.
Okay. So why don't you tell us about your rather large family?
Yeah, I had 11 brothers and sisters. There were 12 of us.
Wow.
And I was the baby of 12. And
All the same mother?
oh, that's the house next door to 2022 Annette Street. Sorry about that. That's what's left of that. But the other houses are totally gone. And there's a back view of the house next to 2022 Annette Street. It was really depressing.
Not much left of it.
Yeah. So let's continue on now. Keep up with it with my slides. And there is my oldest sister, Wilna, who is in a home in Los Angeles. She's 96 years old, and she was the one who took over the mothering duties after I was born, because I was a 12th child and Mama was all worn out. So I remember Wilna getting me all ready for kindergarten and getting me all slicked up. And Miss Brown was my kindergarten teacher, and Wilna used to tease me because I couldn't say Miss Brown, I always said Miss Brown. And she's going to see this, and she'll remember me. And then now here's a picture of more family members. There's me between Ruby and Pearl, two sisters, and they're both dead now. And both of them died in the past 5 years or so. And next to Ruby is Donna, my baby daughter. And next to Donna is Sandra, Pearl's daughter. So, yeah. And then there's a picture coming up of Junior. And this is what we opened the show with. And I wanted to open the show with this picture of Junior because he was, he's a year older than I am. And he was more like a brother than my blood brothers were. And we were really, really close. And it was very, very special. And he matured physically early, and I was a late mature physically. So whenever there was any difficulty going on among our peers, Junior stepped in because he was a muscle guy, you know.
It's nice to have a protector.
Yeah. And he's beautiful, and he's going to see this. And he's in a home in New Orleans now, and he's been in the hospital and back in the home again. And like I said, he's a year older than I am.
So
special feelings for Junior.
Did all your brothers and sisters get along pretty well, or there was a pretty big, widespread? So maybe the oldest ones weren't even home when you were born or when you were little.
It depends on who you ask. Under certain conditions or certain questions, they were a solid family. Because Papa ruled the roost with an iron hand. He was an old-fashioned Catholic dad. And Mama was, I think she was born with a rosary and a prayer book in her hand. She was a strict Catholic. But then they had their feuds back and forth as big families want to have, you know. But I remember they all had a lot of kids, all of them, and there was always a bunch of nephews and nieces around, and there was a whole house full of kids. And the house on Dargenois Street, I forgot to mention, we didn't have any electricity, and we had no running water inside, and it was very, very primitive. But we were happy.
Yeah. So I don't want to distract you from your program,
Sure,
but
go ahead.
just tell me about so how did you get water? Who got the water?
There was a faucet in the middle of the backyard, and I don't know how the water got in there. There was a pipe coming in, and we went out there to get water to bring it in the house to use on a wood stove. And we had a number 8 wash tub where we took a bath once a week. And me being the youngest one, in the wintertime, I was the last one to get into that gumbo and soup. Because the water was getting cold, and it's not funny, Rick. But those are fond memories. Yeah. And then we got a picture of, there's Mama. Yeah, she died in the early 40s. And like I said before, she was, everybody loved Mama.
And how old do you think, or how old was she when she died?
I think she was about 55.
Pretty young.
She was pretty young. And she had a stroke. And she had a lot of sicknesses before that. And from the time I knew her, she always had something going on. And she had severe allergies and food sensitivities. We didn't know about that then. So she was constantly trying to eat and keep her digestion going. But we learned a lot since then. Incidentally, I've inherited that tendency. I've got food sensitivities too. Yeah. But, and then Papa was sort of the strict disciplinarian. And all the girls were very wary of Papa because he was watching who they were dating or seeing, and he had to approve, even if they want to say hello to some guy.
But he didn't do that with the boys?
And no, it was kind of a different culture in those days. Boys are pretty free in the Creole culture to go out and have a good time, and the girls had to be pretty prim and proper and strict and toe the line to be presentable for the suitors who would come around and woo them, or something like that. So there's Mama, and we got an ancient picture of Papa, and I think this was taken in 1930 or 31. And it's the only picture I could find of him. It was torn, as you can see. We tried to repair it, but that's the old man. And his friends called him Elise, but it was Ulysses Baham. And I remember him, he was a shipwright. And him and my mother were born in Madisonville, Louisiana, where the reunion is going to be in July. And they moved to New Orleans during the Depression when it was starting, because things were pretty bad and they weren't building any ships anymore. They couldn't get any work. So we moved in the Ninth Ward, and this was a temporary move until Papa got some carpentry work or some shipwright work in New Orleans, and it never happened before he died there. But so much for wonderful Papa. Now, what else you got for me?
Well, let's talk about Louisiana Creoles. What kind of give us a definition of what that means in terms of race and in terms of ethnicity?
Easy for you to say. Huh?
Oh, I think that's a good.
I thought you'd never ask. Definition of Louisiana Creoles. I wrote this in 2009 because I got some material from the people who were staging the reunion in Madisonville. And there was a definition of Louisiana Creoles that was okay, but it didn't quite suit my fancy because I was, among other things, a technical writer. So I wrote my own version, and indeed they published it in their material thereafter. So I'd like to read it for your benefit so you can see what I see a Louisiana Creole is. Louisiana Creoles are people of varying mixtures of red, white, and black racial heritage, and are largely descended from the colonial white, that is European, slave black, African, and indigenous red, Native American races from the time before the Louisiana Territory became a possession of the United States through the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. Unlike many other ethnic groups in the U.S. who are immigrants from other countries, Louisiana Creoles are a mixed race group that originated in Louisiana, USA, and are descended from American-born forebears. Having originated in Louisiana, some Louisiana Creoles have moved to other larger American cities and to a greater or lesser degree formed pockets of Louisiana-originated Creole groups and culture. Louisiana Creoles have over time developed a unique culture and language derived mostly from the French with minor contribution from other languages. This patois evolved in the 19th century and at that time was used by slaves and planters alike and continues to be used today in some older Louisiana Creole groups. This Louisiana Creole unique culture also has a distinct relationship with food, nutrition, and ritual around food preparation and consumption. Louisiana Creole cuisine incorporates spices, ingredients, and condiments from the French, Italian, Spanish, African, and Native American cultures. The Louisiana Creole community is purely American in its diversity of interest and involvement in political, social, and other interests vital to our freedoms and way of life. Louisiana Creoles come in all physical presentations, including eye color, skin pigmentation, and hair grade. Probably the most significant characteristic of Louisiana Creoles, in addition to physical presentation, is a mindset that manifests itself in a quiet appreciation of their unique racial heritage and culture. That's what Louisiana Creoles are, according to me.
All right. Well, very good. All right. Well, that certainly gives me a better idea. Can you tell us, not for your family, but for our audience, the difference between Creole and Cajun?
Yeah, Cajun are people who moved down from Canada some years ago, and they're considered white, whereas Creoles are a racial mixture, but there was a time not too long ago when there were white Creoles. And there are some Creoles in earlier generations, not too far back, that became white, because in the Creole society, the idea was to marry somebody who was lighter than you, so that and the children then may get light enough to become white and not have to carry the burden. So I know of the European white ancestors that I've had, but I don't have any record of the black African or the American red ancestry. But I do know my mother's dad was from a little town near Hamburg, Germany. But that's a little of the interest of how Creoles came about and the difference between Creoles and Cajuns nowadays.
Okay.
But I understand nowadays that they're sort of intermixing even more and doing Zydeco and all that stuff together.
Yeah, right.
And in that sense, the racial difference is, well, since the 60s and the Civil Rights Movement. But I got to go down there again and learn some more about it.
All right. Well, let's you talked about your mother and your father being Catholic. But I don't think you're Catholic.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
No,
Tell us a little bit
I'm
about
recovering.
No, I know. My partner is Catholic. And one of the things he really detests is to hear that phrase, recovering Catholics. You're in trouble now.
I'm sorry, Tom. I'm sorry. Well, I moved away from the religion as time went by, and I found that there were things that I was required to do, and the ground rules changed depending on the the opinions of the Pope and the Catholic hierarchy and leadership. And eating meat on Friday was that changed, and then this divorce thing was a problem. Because I was unhappy in my first marriage, and I contributed at least half of the difficulty in that marriage, but we were Catholic and we couldn't get a divorce. So we stayed together longer than we should have, even though we had the 5 beautiful children. And as time went by, I found that the things that Catholicism was teaching didn't fit with my objective view of the reality of what life is about and what's important. It seems to me that I can live a life that's worthwhile for me and other human beings by following the simple golden rule. And I'm going to jump ahead, end my shows with KFC, kind, friendly, and charitable. Being kind, being friendly, and being charitable. So I found that trying to live according to the Catholic doctrine and committing a sin from time to time because I didn't live up to it, and I was constantly feeling guilty. And that's a wonderful Catholic trait that we carry around, feeling guilty.
Yes. I know my partner certainly carries it.
Tommy's talking about you again. Yeah. So, and I got a picture of Corpus Christi here, that's where I took my first communion and used to go to Mass every Sunday and pray a lot and was on my knees a lot and pounding my breast and doing mea culpas and like that. And there's still some fond memories and some interesting ones that I won't go into now with the nuns and how they like to discipline you with a rule on the back of your hands.
That certainly sounds like a fond memory.
And incidentally, I was scheduled to go to seminary and become a priest because I was an altar boy for many, many years. And then discovered that I didn't really have a calling and it'd be too difficult to live even more strictly according to the Catholic doctrine to become a priest. And I think I was going in that direction because it was a sort of a reaction to my mother passing, and I was a mama's boy. I was a 12th child, and mama called me baby oftentimes when I was a young teener before she passed, and I get mad at her, but I was her baby. And to lose her, it was very traumatic for me, perhaps more so than the average death of a mother.
How old were you then?
I was early teens.
Early teens.
Yeah. So I embraced the church more fiercely. But at the last minute, I says, no, I can't be a priest. I'm too sinful.
Okay, great. So tell us a little bit about your early childhood, or your younger, excuse me, not your childhood, your adulthood, younger adulthood.
Younger adulthood. Yeah. Well, I got some pictures about that too. That this was in 1950 when I just come out of the military, and this was in Los Angeles, and with my best buddy at that time, Richard Randolph. I used to call him Stalebread, that was his nickname, and he called me headquarters, and we hung out a lot together and went to LA City College for a while, and we played around and had a good time. And so Richard, yeah. And we have another one of me in later years. You notice that hairdo and the pants, and this is, I wanted to be a hippie.
Oh, yeah.
That was in my sister Rona's backyard. And we have one more of me to show you my evolution through the years. And that's a few years later on. And yeah.
Yeah, very handsome. Very handsome.
You're
As
kind.
you still are.
Oh.
Very good. Okay. Tell us about your education, because I know you're pretty highly educated. It comes through.
Yeah. Did I tell you about my health?
No.
Okay.
I wanted to hear about your education.
Okay.
I'm throwing you a curve.
Education, that's interesting. It seems so much of my life I took what I wanted to learn. I don't know how I learned very early on. If I wanted to do something or be something, I would do it and take it whatever it took. I don't know where that came from. Being a poor Creole kid in New Orleans in the Ninth Ward, at that time I didn't have much self-esteem at all. And it seems like everywhere I turned at home, my sisters were all pretending to be mama. And this one had an order, and the next one had an order, and I was just tired of being, I was depressed. I was a depressed kid. So my childhood was not too happy. And I remember in elementary school, I had a tonsillectomy and an appendectomy. I was a skinny kid. And I vaguely remember finishing elementary school. The next thing I knew, I was in junior high at Albert Wicker High. And that was in a complex where there were 3 buildings in this square block, and all of them were condemned, except 2 of the buildings had part of the first floor that was still usable. Well, this is black and white education.
Wow.
And talking about that, in elementary school, we had school books, but they weren't available for all the students, and they were handed down from the white schools, and they're oftentimes marked up. It was just horrible. So we were Creole in our culture, this group, but then we went to black schools. So I had the full impact of being colored or Negro at that time. So then in junior high at Albert Wicker, then they closed the school, and I went to Booker T. Washington, which is like a trade school. And I think I went there for maybe 3 months, and then I ditched the rest of the time and played hooky and didn't finish high school. And then when I went into the Army, I took the AGCT the testing, and I found out that I had a brain. I never thought I could think. And my IQ was one that would qualify me to go to West Point with a senatorial appointment,
Right.
and not even just OCS. What is this? So I went into the Army, and eventually I went to school at night and changed majors a bunch of different times, and finally ended up doing a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in psychology and a PhD in clinical psychology, which I got to when I was 30 years or so ago in San Diego, USIU, and got my PhD in clinical psychology. And I was really pleasantly surprised. It looks like it's almost time for a break.
All right.
Because the family was in San Diego that Sunday afternoon when I got my doctorate, and I looked out in the audience, and there was Pearl, the sister of Pearl who you saw earlier, and they had imported her from New Orleans at the time to come and surprise me for my graduation, because I was the only kid of the 12 that got any college education whatsoever, because I suddenly discovered I had a brain and I could think.
Yeah.
So, and since then I've been in school, and I'm still in school, and I go to Senior Studies Institute, sponsored by Portland Community College, and I will be 130 and still in school. I love learning. I love learning. So I got a high sign from the director that I'm going to need to take a break here pretty quick, or he's going to yell at me. Let's see, where's my prompt sheet for that? So, looks like it's about time to take a break. So we're going to put up, you don't have that, I've got that. We're going to put up on the screen a few panels that show information that you may want to make note of during the break. You may want to get a pencil or pen and paper now. Let me tell you about the Dr. Don Show broadcast schedule. Can you put that panel up, please? Yeah. For you viewers who live in the Washington County part of the Portland, Oregon metro area, Conversations with Dr. Don shows a broadcast 7 times each week. Typically, a new show is first aired on a Tuesday and is rebroadcast on the following Friday through Monday. Now, you can also get Conversations with Dr. Don on the internet. Can you put that panel up? Yeah. You can tell your friends to watch Dr. Don shows on the internet anytime by going to my website at www.donbaham.com and clicking on favorite links. Anytime, day and night, any place in the world, you can watch my shows. You can also tune in to our occasional live call-in show. Periodically, a show is recorded live so that you viewers in the Portland, Oregon metro area can call in and give us your say on whatever it is that we're talking about during the show. The next live call-in show will be on Thursday, July 29th at 8 p.m. in the Portland, Oregon metro area on Comcast Channel 11 or Verizon Channel 22. Now, I want to tell you about 2 ongoing Socrates Cafe meetings going on in Portland, Oregon on the west side of the Willamette River. There's the first slide right now. Socrates Cafe meetings are regular gatherings of individuals curious about the important questions about life that most of us are too busy to ask because we are too busy in our ongoing existence to take the time to ask. The participants engage in dialogue using the Socratic method toward finding answers and learning from each other. The locations of these meetings are up on the screen right now for you to make note of. Now let's take that brief break for about 6 minutes or so, and there'll be an interesting song playing at the same time. Can we put up those panels and then the other grouping?
Weapons of mass destruction. Weapons of mass destruction. Weapons of mass destruction. Weapons of mass destruction. Of mass destruction. Of mass destruction. mass destructions of mass
You said we're
destructions
headed to
of mass
war in Iraq. I
destructions
don't
of
know why
mass
you say that.
destructions of mass
I hope we're not
destructions
headed to war in Iraq.
of mass destructions.
I'm the person who gets to decide, not you. So that's what covers some ideas, and my job is to think beyond the immediate. You're free, and freedom is beautiful, and it'll take time to restore chaos and order, but we will. Before I take your questions, let me speak with the American people about the situation in Iraq. This has been tough weeks in that country. It's in the interest of a long-term peace in the world that we work for a free...
Okay, we're back. I hope you enjoyed that out there. Thanks for staying tuned. And for you viewers who missed the opening of the show, maybe you're just channel surfing. Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people, like most of you out there, about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals. And as we know, this is a reversal of fortunes here, and my guest, David Delk, is interviewing me about my Creole existence and upbringing. So we'll pick up where we left off again.
Yeah, right, yeah. So we were talking about your education. You mentioned your health. Tell us about your health.
My health now is excellent.
Excellent.
Thanks a lot to somebody in the studio audience out there, my lovely wife, Pat. She watches over me and chides me if I'm not behaving too good. But thank you, honey. I love you. And I've had a lot of things happen over the years. I'll be 82 in December this year. As I mentioned, appendectomy, tonsillectomy, and other things happening. And about 14, 15 months ago, I had a major surgery. My small intestine wrapped around itself and died. And thank goodness for the VA, the Veterans Administration. The medical care is just wonderful. And they got me all put back together again. Lost about 22, 23 pounds. And it's a 2-year recovery, so I'm about nearly 2/3 in the recovery process. And I'm gaining weight again.
You are.
And doing some strength training. And I still have some difficulties with sticking with a strict diet because of the food allergies and sensitivities that my mother had, and my daughters all inherited from me and their mom. But by and large, I'm pretty healthy and feeling good about things and about life. And I gave up being a depressed kid a long time ago, and now and then I'm a little depressed, but by and large, I appreciate being alive and what it's all about. Yeah.
Good.
So that's my health.
All right, excellent, good. And you mentioned Pat.
Yeah.
So talk about your part.
I got a few slides of that.
Yeah.
There's one of there's me with my first wife, Juanita, and my 5 daughters. That's when we lived on 127th Street in Los Angeles, and it was a ritual. Every Easter Sunday, we'd go to Mass and come back home in the backyard and barbecue and make homemade ice cream with a kind of crank around like that. Yeah. And they look forward to it Easter Sunday. So, and then what else do we have here? And there's a picture of somebody out there. Who is that?
Oh, that's Pat.
That's the boo-boo.
Yeah, that's her.
Yeah. And then we have another one of Pat and I in the Caribbean on vacation, having a good time. That was a good time we had there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. And children, grandchildren? You
Yeah,
must have
we
a
have
few
some.
with 5 daughters.
Yeah. Oh, I lost count a long time ago. And great-grandchildren. Easier for me to say. But here's some pictures of my daughters. Oops. Well, that's my 80th birthday party. I don't know how that got in there. About a couple years ago, my wife, Pat, decided to get together with Valerie, my daughter, in this picture, and have me come down to Southern California, and invited all my old friends and extended family, and they had a surprise 80th birthday party for me, which blew me away.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So there are my daughters, all 5 of my daughters, and Denise and Daryl and Donna the baby and Brenda and Valerie. And let's see, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Do you have any more of my daughters? Yeah, there's some more of my daughters, yeah. That's Brenda and Daryl, who lives in Pennsylvania. And there's Brenda and Valerie. Hi, Valerie. They both live in Southern California. And then there's Donna, the baby of my 5 daughters. Yeah.
All right.
So that's so much for my daughters.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I know you as kind of a political person, so let's talk about that. Are you left, right, center, don't care?
I have a cameraman been working with me for 10 years, and he's been working on me to change over, and I think I've become a Tea Party member. Okay, Rick? I'm a progressive liberal leftist from way back, and Jim Hightower is one of my heroes, and Noam Chomsky, and Martin Luther King, and Gandhi, and FDR, and Bobby Kennedy. Yeah, so I'm a committed leftist progressive.
Okay, why do you think that is?
Interesting. I probably why I became a clinical psychologist too, because I wanted to rescue people from the conditions that they're unhappy with. And if I can help people in my normal existence, then I can help myself and that part of me that was not satisfied or pleased in those formative years when I didn't get the strokes that I needed. And yet I got a lot of loving and caring too. It's a mixed bag. So that's how, and it feels good to be nice to people.
It is, yes. I agree with that. But don't you think that people on the right can be also?
Yes. Excellent question. Ultimately, I look at my thinking and behavior over a period of time and make a summary judgment overall. And a person who's far enough on the right does the same thing and makes a summary judgment overall about the success of their existence and whether they're living a good life. And living a good life is when I can look back and have had loving, good, enabling relationships with other human beings, and I've been kind to them for the most part. And I've not done any outlandish or horrible things, or not joined the American Nazi Party or the Tea Party like Rick does. So, so that's why I'm a leftist.
Rick's smiling over there.
Yeah, we fight all the time. So that's my political persuasion.
Okay, all right, great. Membership in groups?
Oh my gosh. I was going to bring that, I've got a loose leaf binder, and I've got cards for the organizations I belong to, and at last count, I think there was some 30-something of them. The Southern Poverty Law Center, the American Civil Liberties Union, the American Humanist Association, the Democratic Socialists of America, the Alliance for Democracy.
Oh, I like that one.
And a whole bunch of organizations to do with caring for human beings and helping out in life. Yeah.
So tell us about a person in your past that you really liked or admired. Gandhi
comes to mind. I guess that endured over the years. My respect for him, and I've seen the movie Gandhi probably 6 times over the years. And I pick him first. I used to say Jesus, but the Jesus that I know is the stories that I learned, but someone quite recently suggested that Jesus was not all he was cracked up to be in his performance, in his everyday living. He was sometimes mean and did things like that. So I'm not saying Jesus anymore, but I feel a bit sad. Maybe it's a hangover from my Catholic days. But even if it's a mythical genius, Jesus, he lived a life that was kind, friendly, and charitable, and he cared for people. And in that sense, I would see myself as a Christian with a small c, not a Christian as defined by the practitioners of the various Christian denominations. And then Martin Luther King is a hero of mine, but for a while I saw him during the 60s revolution as being not militant enough. But on the other hand, Malcolm X was too militant. And then I didn't want to identify with any black organization because I was a Creole. I was something in between, you see. It was just awfully confusing. But those are some, and nowadays Noam Chomsky and Howard Zinn, who's gone now.
Yeah, just passed.
Oh, great, great human beings.
Anyone in South America you like?
Hugo Chavez,
Hugo Chavez, right.
and Che Guevara, and Fidel Castro, and the new Latin American leaders now who are taking their countries back from the American imperialists, those leaders. And I don't know how long the CIA and the U.S. government is going to let them get away with becoming independent and free from the World Bank and the greed heads. But Hugo Chavez is my number here.
Yeah.
We should have a Bolivarian revolution of North America. That will save us from the Democrats and Republicans.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So you want something other than the two-party system that we have now?
That's a misnomer, two-party system. There's the two wings of the same party, the corporate party. If we had a real alternative, then we would have somebody who speaks for ordinary citizens rather than people who think they are speaking for an opposing point of view. But it gets right down to it. The corporations still run things, or still in charge, or still manage our lives indirectly.
It's like Ralph Nader described it as Tweedledee and Tweedledum. That's what our choices are.
Tweedledee or Tweedledum?
Right, yes.
So Ralph Nader. You see, you know how to push my buttons. Yay, Ralph Nader.
Well, let's get back to your life.
Okay.
Okay. Tell us about your work life. What have you done?
Oh my gosh.
I know you were in the Army.
Yeah. I started working for $2.50 a week, working 6 days a week.
A week?
A week, yeah.
Wow.
A delivery boy for a grocery store. And I finally got a serious job after I got discharged from the Army and was working in aircraft, bucking rivets for $1.10 an hour, and moved up the ranks and became eventually in that field became an aircraft mechanic, hydraulic checkout mechanic, and F-86s and F-100s. All the while, people, mostly white leaders, recognized that I had something more going than just a simple grease monkey, and gave me opportunities. There were people giving me opportunities, so I'd take their tests and fight them, and they'd have to give me the rating, you know? There's a whole bunch of stories there. And then finally the B-70 program was cut back in the 70s, and I moved into engineering. And that's when I decided I better go to school and get some sort of recognition. So I took my GED after a whole bunch of courses and who knows what all, changing majors. And then I became a technical writer and traveled around the country going to missile bases, writing operations manuals for missile complexes. Can you imagine that? Power generation and distribution system. And became an electrical contractor because I wanted to study psychology. But when I got my license there, then the bottom fell out of the economy and there was no work there. So I kept going to school, and then when I was going to school at night and working full-time, which was pretty tough, going to San Diego on the weekends to take core courses. And I had my private practice as a marriage, family, and child counselor, plus doing the 13, 15 units, plus working 8 hours a day.
Wow.
And my mentor, Dr. Boson, my psychiatrist, who was my leader, my field faculty, told me I had to take a break, otherwise I was going to go bananas. And I took a break off from my PhD program and finally went back and finished it off. And like I was saying, David, I'm still going to school and loving it. There's more for that, but more for that later on.
Yeah, and are you still doing any of the psychologist work? Because I remember when we first met, I think you had still some clients.
Yeah, I do. I teach transactional analysis. I have an office in my home, and I have a few clients ongoing only by personal referral. I don't solicit clients, and I don't accept payments from the insurance industry, which I hate. No, I don't hate So I have a small private practice there. And in my retirement life, I do the Conversations with Dr. Don TV show, talk show. And then Creole Heritage Celebration. I have another piece I'd like to do that has to do with being Creole, if I may. And the Creole Heritage Celebration. There was, in 2007, there's an organization in Natchitoches, Louisiana, that has a Creole Heritage Celebration. And I went down and I videoed the whole conference, and I had 18 individual tapes, individual programs, which I broadcast of the speakers and all that was going on. And I had an introductory speech that was at the beginning of each one of these episodes. So I'd like to read that a little more, okay?
Yeah, please.
In 2007, I recorded the 2007 Creole Heritage Celebration in Natchitoches, Louisiana. It was a blast that lasted a whole delightful weekend. The result was 18 individual tapes, each of 30 to 60 minutes in length, which were subsequently broadcast on community access television stations in certain cities around the country. In addition to producing the series, I narrated the opening graphic used for the opening of each of the 18 programs. This narration gives an added flavor to how I feel about my Creole-ness. I just coined that.
Yeah,
You like
very
that?
nice. I like that.
I'd like to read it for you now. So it's kind of long, so bear with me. Hi, I'm Dr. Don Baham, a community access television producer and the host of the ongoing weekly cable television series Conversations with Dr. Don. I'm also a retired clinical psychologist and a certified Creole born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. The program you're about to watch, one of a series of 18 or so individual broadcasts, came about because I wanted to record and share with you, my viewers, what I was able to of the 2007 Creole Heritage Celebration in the beautiful and historic city of Natchitoches in northwest Louisiana. I wanted to do this because I'd heard good things about this organization of Creoles from a number of sources. An organization that tracks the Creole diaspora? When I grew up in New Orleans in the 30s and 40s, I knew of no formal organization of Creoles like the Creole Heritage Foundation of the day. I only knew of the local, more or less neighborhood social organizations like the Autocrat Club in New Orleans. Well, like so many young Creoles in the 40s returning from military service to other parts of the country, I lost touch to a large degree with my New Orleans Creole-style community. The city of Los Angeles Creole community in the 50s through the 70s provided a modicum of Creole community, but nothing like the Creole community in New Orleans in the 30s and 40s. And then moving out of Los Angeles proper into the larger Los Angeles area suburban community further isolated me from my cultural upbringing, not to mention moving to Oregon 17 years ago. You ever find yourself in a place where you see someone that has a look or a flavor about them that suggests they might be Creole, only to discover that it is more how they look physically that caused your misperception? Of course I love where I live now in the rainy Pacific Northwest, but if there are any Creoles up here, I haven't seen any, and I'm still looking. So that's why I decided that I had to come to the celebration, and I'm so very glad I did. I can't put into words the feelings of joy and connection that I felt at the celebration, and am still feeling. The feeling of joy and connection was certainly encouraged and facilitated by the warm and gracious welcome and ongoing support and assistance of Mrs. Janet Rabare-Colson, the Executive Director of the NSU Creole Heritage Center, and her eager, dedicated staff. I can't thank Mrs. Colson and her staff enough. I believe that the flavor and essence of what it's like to be Creole comes through in the speeches and presentations that you will see and hear in the series of broadcasts that comprise the complete program. I believe that whether or not you are Creole, you are bound to learn more about us, our heritage, and our love of life. I hope that after viewing any or all of this series of programs, you viewers might become encouraged to find more of the fun and love of life in your own particular culture. So enough of my talk, and on with the program. And that took longer than I wanted to take.
Okay. So are these 18 programs available for our audience to watch?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna mount them. I've got a copy of them at home. I'll dig them out and put them on my website. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, I think you had sent me some of them several years ago, and I watched them. They were very good, very informative.
And in my retirement life, I also did Driving Miss Daisy. In my acting life, I'm also an actor, and I played Hulk in Driving Miss Daisy, and here's a picture of that coming up. And the lady in there is a marvelous English actor. I was with Tiger's Heart Shakespeare Company, and I did a number of productions with them in Portland. But then this was Hillsborough Actors Repertory Theater. And I got a picture of some of my modeling work. I do some modeling, heavens, you name it, I've done it. And you saw my 80th birthday party a little while ago.
Right.
And we're running out of time, so I can't do any more stuff.
Yeah, and we had a lot more things to still cover.
Yeah.
So do we have time for you to tell us your favorite books?
From the top of my head,
Yeah.
People's History of the United States,
Howard Zinn.
Howard Zinn. And Emotional Intelligence, Daniel Goleman. And You Are Not Alone, for those with emotional or mental problems, and I forget who wrote that. But I got to stop this now and go to a closing, all right?
All right.
There was more for you.
Yeah. We'll,
So
we'll do a second episode sometime.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Keep those pens and pencils handy because you may want to jot down something that we'll show you in the closing credits. I invite you to give us feedback, both positive and negative, about any aspect of the show, and I mean it. It helps us to give you a better show in the future. And my email address is friendlydon@AOL.com. Email me and let me know what you think of the show. Public service announcements, I got a couple of those I want to tell you about. The Alliance for Democracy, again, let's put up the national website for that, because David Delk will kill me if you don't see it.
Oh, I wouldn't.
And let's put up the next panel, which is the Portland chapter of the Alliance for Democracy, Progressive Populist Movement. And call David, there's the phone number, and join us for some of our work that we're civic action stuff that's important. The ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. Without the ACLU, we'd lose our civil liberties completely with this administration going on. And the ACLU racial profiling hotline, I want to tell you about them. If you think you've been stopped because of how you look rather than a legitimate reason, the ACLU wants to know about it. Give them a call and say they stopped me because I look Hispanic or Mexican or something, all right? And the Humanists of Greater Portland, let's put that up. That's an organization I've been belonging to for a long time. Thank you. And we meet on every Sunday morning at Friendly House. And there's our programs on Sunday mornings at Friendly House. And you're looking at what's going to be coming up for June 6th. Every Sunday morning we have an early bird discussion group, open discussion, at 8:45 to 9:45. And then the main program goes on from 10 till 11:30. And Medical Teams International is the speaker is going to be Don Klosterman. And then there's an alternative to the main program. And that's an open discussion that's going to be facilitated by Jeff Strang. But anyhow, my CG person thinks we should look at the June 13th Sunday morning programs, right? So that's what's going on June 13th, that Sunday morning. The early bird discussion group, and I guess I'm supposed to tell you that you're supposed to be KFC. Not Kentucky Fried Chicken, David.
No.
Dr. Don's KFC.
Absolutely.
Kind, friendly, and charitable.
And very charitable.
Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable. Especially charitable to you, and you, and Bill, and you, and you. You got a closing thought or comment before we shut down?
I have really enjoyed this. I am really glad that we did this, and I'm really looking forward to episode 2. And we'll talk about the bus trip.
Oh, no, that'll require 2 more hours. David had me go with him to a conference in Arizona, and he decided that we would take the Greyhound bus to be carbon neutral and friendly, and I damn near died. My feet swelled up. I'll kill you for that. I'm still going to pay you back. Thanks again for watching. Good night out there. I hope you enjoyed this program.